Welcome back to the November edition of Conversations, and I'm thrilled to be able to have as my guest a good friend of mine, Dr. Greg Hillis. And Greg, welcome, and thank you for being here on this program.
Thank you.
Let me tell the viewing audience a little bit about your background. First of all, you come from Alberta, Canada.
I do.
And I know are very proud, as we all are, of that. You're Associate Professor of Theology at Bellarmine. And I know that you and I have, over these last more than half dozen years, become good friends. You and your wife, Kim, have three children, three boys. And I know that you're an active member of Holy Trinity Parish in Louisville, and Kim, a member of St. Matthew Episcopal Church.
That's right.
Here in Louisville. We've had the good occasion for the last 4 years of having something that's a little unique, maybe, in the United States. We have this gathering of theologians and bishops for a book club, and I've really been grateful for that. We've met twice a year and done that with regularity for 4 years. Thanks for organizing that. And one of the things that I thought was very good is the last time we met, we had as our topic the new apostolic exhortation of Pope Francis.
That's
and
right.
We're going to talk about that in these few minutes that we have, so let me put it up for the audience to see. The apostolic exhortation is a document that is the words of our Holy Father, Pope Francis. They were given to us just a few months ago, and they capture not only the deliberations and recommendations to the Pope from the two synods on the family, but they also capture a lot of his own personal teachings that came through the Wednesday audiences, and it's a rich, rich document. So let's get right at it,
Sure.
Greg, if we could. First of all, could you give us a little summary from, in your own words, of what you see as the main points of this apostolic exhortation?
Sure. I think the main points have to do with both the complexities of family life, but also the beauty of family life. And so, I think a lot of attention has been placed on what Pope Francis has to say about how difficult and complex family life is. But I think I think we all have to acknowledge that, obviously. But I think he also presents a beautiful picture of what it is to be a family, about what role families play in the church, and about what it is that we can do as families to build one another up, both individually, but also what role we can play in the church at large.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because when I've been going around asked to give some talks, I just gave a talk not too long ago up in Ohio, the two themes that I captured was the witness to the beauty, and witness by families themselves, not having me talk about it, but have families. And then when you talk about complexities, the call to pastorally accompany one another.
That's right.
Which I think fits very much into that. It really has been a gift to us, and it captures some of the main themes, really, of the pontificate of Pope Francis, huh?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's somebody who is recognizes that human life can be very difficult. I think any of us who have families, and all of us do, recognize that things don't always go exactly as we hope that they would.
Right.
And people's lives are difficult.
Right.
And I think Pope Francis, in his own witness, has made very clear that he wants to be with, accompany people who are having a difficult time in this life. And I think that this document does talk about that.
Yeah. At one point, I think he's talked about not just with family and the joy of love, but I think he's also talking about Christian life itself. He says that it's not just a beautiful idea or ideal, it is that, but it is also concretely lived out.
That's right.
And I think that's what I hear you say. I'm kind of eager to talk to you because in addition to being a professor, and we've talked an awful lot on that level, but you are also a husband and a father. And I'm just wondering, as you reflect upon the gift of Amoris Laetitia, what are some of the areas, first of all, the challenges that you may have uncovered, but also perhaps did anything surprise you, and did anything inspire you? You kind of gave me a little hint of that when you first started. But what would be some of your reflections?
Well, one of the things that I love, speaking as a theologian before I get to the being a dad and being a husband, I love what he does with the Trinity, and that he talks about the Trinity being a model for the family, you know, where the Father gives the totality of himself to the Son gives the totality of himself to the Father, and they're bound together by the mutual love of the Holy Spirit, so that you have this community built into God. And he reiterates that throughout. And
in many ways, we may be mining that for a good bit, because Imago Dei, the whole image of God, we've usually seen correctly as each person. But you're saying that the communion, or the communio of the family coming together, is in itself also the image of the Trinity.
Together we image God as family, and I really love that insight. I mean, one of the things that surprised me about the document was how specific Pope Francis was in his advice.
I remember us talking about this.
And there's one part there where he talks about, I mean, he literally just directs his attention to husbands and says to them, don't try to solve your wife's problems, right? What you need to do is just listen to your wife, right? And I can't tell you how often Kim and I have had that kind of conversation, right? That happens all the time.
I'm sure many people in the viewing audience have also
right, where when she comes to me with something, my instinct is to solve it, right? And so that was kind of surprising, because it seemed as if well, the Pope is an older man, never married, and yet he somehow has this insight. But I know it comes out of his own, you know, constant contact with as a pastor with people. But what I really loved about it, you know, and I've said this to a few people, you know, I think chapters 4 through 7 could really be used as an examination of conscience for parents.
It's accessible to the average parent, isn't it?
I mean,
they could take this book up and read it with fruitfulness. Good.
And so, you know, over and over what he says, and this is tied to what he says to husbands in relating to their wives, he says he's constantly telling people to be present to one another. And I find that as a husband, as a father, very difficult sometimes. We're constantly bombarded with you know, our electronic devices, by demands on our time, by our own concerns and our anxieties. But what he says constantly is that what we have to do is that when your child comes to you, when your spouse comes to you, be absolutely present to them. And
what's the most valuable thing we're told we can give to another is our time, our full attention.
That's right. And I know, you know, for me concretely, the time when I don't want to do this is at bedtime.
Right.
When I've had a long day and they're constantly, my 5-year-old is constantly getting out of bed and is constantly asking for my help. And at that time is when I'm least patient. And I have to say that
you're giving us really very, very concrete. I think I can almost see this interview as whetting the appetite. Whetting the appetite of people. I know you've written about Amoris Laetitia, and we're going to hear more about it, but it's such a great document to mine. And I love the fact that today you gave us a little bit of a taste as theologian, but also as father and husband. So, Greg, thank you so much. Thank you for being on this program and for speaking about Amoris Laetitia so beautifully. And thank you, the viewing audience. Please stay tuned now for the third and final segment of Conversations with Archbishop Kurtz.